out. 8th inning, 10-3. Bases are loaded for Verlander, who waits on a 3-0 pitch. He swings, and it's a high fly ball, deep center field. It is gone! Home run! And a huge bat flip to celebrate. All right, Ben, start the show already.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Flippin Bats, a playoff special. We're in the middle of playoffs. Things are rolling along, and we got ourselves a presenting sponsor, and it's Taco Bell. That's right. Flippin Bats is sponsored by Taco Bell. Get the Cantina Crispy Melt Taco today at participating U.S. locations for a limited time only. I couldn't think of a better presenting sponsor than Taco Bell. I've had my fair share in the day, and I am pumped about this one. But let's get into this episode. Of course, we're going to round the bases off the top. We're going to get to an awesome conversation with Alex Avila, who played 13 years in the big leagues, just retired. We got a fun conversation with him coming soon. And then we're going to get into some top fives in a little while. Top five playoff performances so far, and top five playoff atmospheres. This one's going to be fun, and there's going to be one that surprises you a little bit, guaranteed. But off the top, as usual, let's round the bases with some storylines from the division series round that we just got through, and it was incredible. Some great series that we saw, and I want to start with the Houston Astros. The Houston Astros bounced the Chicago White Sox. They are out. A series that I didn't you know what? I didn't think this would happen the way it went down. And I said this many times, and this was a theme throughout the playoffs. I think pitching wins in the playoffs. That's why I liked this White Sox team. I like this White Sox team a lot. I like them to win the World Series. But this Astros team just proved to be too much for them. They just kept coming and coming and coming. And this dominant offense was too much for them. This dominant offense with this postseason experience, by the way, that has never been seen before. Let's look at Carlos Correa, Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, and Yuli Gurriel. Those four teammates have played more postseason games than any other four teammates in the history of baseball. And it showed this series. You know, they go into Houston. The series starts in Houston. They win those first two games there, handle business, and then they go back to Chicago, or they go to Chicago, where Chicago, the White Sox take that first game, Game 3, handily, and then this series kind of became, is this a turning point we're about to see? Are we about to see a shift in this series? But we didn't. They came out that next day, the Astros, in Game 4 with Carlos Rodon on the mound against them, who was a Cy Young candidate for most of the year, by the way. And they roughed him up. They got to him. They end up winning the game handily. One particular moment, by the way, in that game that sticks out to me is the one that really broke this game open, that really was the end of the series, is in the third inning. Carlos Correa comes up with the bases loaded. The White Sox stick with Carlos Rodon. Correa's up, gets a huge hit, drives in 2 runs, and I listened to the post-game interview after. And Correa said, yeah, I saw him strike out Bregman early in the game on that exact pitch, and he comes off the mound, pumping his chest, yelling and screaming, so I knew that's what he wanted to do. I knew that's where he wanted to go. That's where he wanted to get his energy from, his passion from, that pitch, striking somebody out on a 99-mile-an-hour fastball up in the zone. He was ready for that. That's stuff that doesn't show up in the box score. That's stuff that these Astros that have played together in the playoffs more than any teammates in history, that's the difference. That's what this team has that you can't account for. So no matter how good this White Sox team is, and this White Sox team was very, very good, this pitching staff is going to be a problem for a long time to come. The back end of the bullpen, they're really good. But the Houston Astros just proved to be better. They had the experience. They have the talent. They have an offense that just doesn't stop coming at you. They have an MVP, a guy that's going to get MVP votes in the 7 hole in that lineup. Are you kidding me? There's not a deeper offense in baseball. This team's special. This team is advancing in the playoffs, and this team is going to be a problem for anybody that they run into. And this team is going to play another very talented team, which let's go over to second base. This leads me into second base. The Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox take down the number 1 seed in the American League, a fantastic baseball team in the Tampa Bay Rays. They're gone. The Rays are done. People were picking them for the World Series. People, you ask many experts, 80% of them, 90% of them are going to take the Rays in this first series. The Rays matched up really well against this Red Sox team. The Red Sox are here because of their offense. Their offense is so good. But one thing that they don't do great is they don't pitch great. But it didn't matter in this series. This was an awesome series, I thought. I loved every game of this series. The first one starts out, the Rays win easily. They shut them out. Everybody says, yep, that's how this series is going to go. We knew it. Then the Red Sox make an absolute statement in Game 2. I mean, a statement. They come out, they put up a bunch of runs. They got everybody hitting home runs. They got Kike Hernandez with 4 extra base hits in a game. They get down early. They got their guy on the mound in Chris Sale, who gives up a grand slam in the first inning. And myself, I said, this series is going to be over quick. But kudos to the Red Sox for bouncing back, putting up a bunch of runs and winning that game and shifting the momentum. Then they go back to Fenway. They go to Fenway, and they don't end up leaving. They take care of business there. Game 3 was awesome. Both of these games, Game 3 and Game 4, were just great baseball games in Fenway. What a great atmosphere for a baseball game. And, that is a big factor for me in this series. This playoff atmosphere in Boston is one that you can't get used to. It's intimidating. You can go in there, and just like what happened to the Rays, you might never come out. And that's what happened. They go in a split series, and they don't win a game, and they end up losing. But what an incredible series. Some great games. Game 3 and Game 4 were fantastic. Some heroes arose on the offensive end of things for the Red Sox that we just didn't expect, by the way. Kike Hernandez became the star for this team in the division series. He's a big reason that they're moving on to the CS against the Houston Astros. Of course, you have Devers, who was injured, but steps up and hits a huge bomb in Game 4. An absolute moonshot to get the scoring started. And from there, that was ball game. They didn't look back. The Red Sox end up advancing and winning that series and advancing to the ALCS now against those Houston Astros. So what an incredible series we're about to get, by the way, that starts Friday night in Houston. Astros, Red Sox, ALCS, the first Astros, or the Astros' 5th ALCS in a row, by the way. The 5th in a row, which got me to thinking, this doesn't happen often. They're the 3rd team in history to go to 5 straight American League championship, or not even American League, 5 straight championship series. Only been done by the Atlanta Braves, who did it 8 times in the 90s, and the Oakland A's, who did it in the 70s. They did it 5 times. And now tied with them is the Houston Astros from 2017 to this year. The active streak. 5 years in a row in the ALCS. Think about that. Think about that. You have all these teams with the best payrolls, and you got a team that's now going 5 years in a row, and they get to take on one of the most storied franchises in the history of this game, the Boston Red Sox. I could not be more excited. So kudos to the Red Sox for taking down the number 1 seed in the American League, coming out of this as a wild card team, a team that we didn't even expect, a team that in the last game of the year against the Nationals, we didn't even know if they'd win that game and get into the playoffs. But they do, they squeak in, they beat their arch rival, the New York Yankees, and their reward for that was playing the number 1 seed in the American League, and they beat them too. So congratulations to the Boston Red Sox. I can't wait for that series to come up. But let's head on over to third. Another exciting series. This one, still rolling. We get a Game 5. The NL West clash. Better than advertised. You know, these two teams were the best two teams in baseball this year. The Giants were the best team in baseball, followed right on their heels by the LA Dodgers. So these two teams, one of them was bound to get a wild card spot, which sucks. It ended up being the Dodgers. The Dodgers get in. The Dodgers win that game. And then they face off in the playoffs. These two teams have never played in the playoffs. This is a huge rivalry. Up there with the Red Sox and the Yankees. One of the best rivalries in the history of the game. And they have never played in the playoffs until now. Until now. And we're getting a Game 5. This series has gone, you couldn't draw it up better. Look, and they've each been winning at their own game. The Giants come out at home and win Game 1 in a low-scoring battle. Their bullpen comes in and saves the day. Logan Webb spins the best gem of the playoffs so far, 7 2/3, 10 punch-outs, throws fantastic. The bullpen comes in and shuts the door. They win the game. Then the next game, the Dodgers score some runs. The offense wins them that game. Julio Urias threw great, though. Then it goes to LA. The Giants win that first one, 1-0, in a very well-pitched game from start to finish. And then, the wind swirling in that game. The last play of the game, a deep fly ball off Gavin Lux's bat. He throws his hands up. He thinks he ties the game. The win, which, look, we filmed this in LA. I'm in LA. That game was in LA. The win that day was insane. And it truly played a big factor in that game. On both sides. On both sides. It wasn't just that last play. But Gavin Lux thought he hit a homer in that game to tie it. He didn't. Giants win. And then Game 4, which I was at. I was at Game 4. Their offense showed up. And the Dodgers end up winning that game. This series has been perfect. And now we get a Game 5. Now the series goes back to San Francisco. And we're going to get another start from Logan Webb. I can't wait. I am so excited. This series has been better than advertised. And I don't even know if that was possible. These are the two best teams in baseball. An absolute rivalry. And now we get them in a Game 5 to go to the NLCS. It's perfect. I'm excited. I think Logan Webb is going to throw another gem. And I can't wait to watch that one. But let's head on to home plate. Rounding third, heading home. And it is the story of these playoffs so far. The offenses. The offenses are reigning supreme. I have said pitching wins in the playoffs. And I do believe that, but to this point, it hasn't. Look at who's winning these series. The Braves. The Astros. The Red Sox. All the superior offensive team. So far in this postseason, what has been proven is that the offense is going to win. You got to have an offense that steps up. The Brewers are a team that come to mind. There's not a better pitching rotation in baseball. And you know what their pitching rotation did in the playoffs? They threw great. They did what they were supposed to do. They just didn't score any runs. And that's been the name of the game. Offenses are winning this. You got to put up some runs. The Braves end up winning that series. The Braves got good pitching, but they ended up with better offense. Jock Peterson. It's Jocktober, baby. Jock Peterson steps up in multiple of those games. Freddie Freeman in the series clincher with a huge home run off of the best closer in baseball, perhaps, Josh Hader. The better hitting beat the better pitching. The Astros series, the better hitting, the best lineup in baseball, perhaps, the best offense in baseball all year long, statistically, won this series against one of the best rotations, the best rotation in the American League. That's been the story. That's been the big story of this playoffs, is that the offense is winning. And now we get to head to an ALCS where we know we're going to get offense. Two of the hottest. Not only are these the two of the best offenses in the American League, but two of the hottest offenses in the American League. So we get an offensive series, which I'm pumped to watch. And then on the other side, you get a Braves good offense. And who knows? If the theme sticks, here, if offense truly reigns supreme in the playoffs like it has every other series, are the Dodgers going to win Game 5? Because that's been the theme. But offense has been winning these games. I'm excited for the championship series. I'm excited for Game 5. I'm excited to see how it shapes out. But as I've always said, pitching wins in the playoffs. Not this year. Not this year. But look, who better to bring in than our guest that we have, a 13-year big league player. Let's ask him about that. What does he think about these playoffs? Let's ask him a bunch of these questions. I'm excited to get to it. Let's bring in our guest, Alex Avila. Alex, thank you so much for joining me, my friend.
No, thanks for having me on. I mean, I've been following a little bit. You've been doing awesome, and I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate that. And so have you. I saw you recently on MLB Network, absolutely killing it. Just retired, by the way, and now already killing it on MLB Network. So I'm excited to see more from you. And now it's playoff time, Alex. So let's get right into that. Let's talk about the playoffs, and let's start in the American League with what we just watched with the Red Sox and the Rays. The Red Sox as the wild card team pulling off the upset. Did you see that coming? I mean, it wasn't even really, they ended it pretty quickly, didn't even go back to Tampa. Did you see that coming?
Yeah, they took advantage of the fact that they were up, obviously, and in Boston. I wouldn't necessarily say I saw that coming, but what I did see was a hot team, because we ended up playing them, obviously, the last weekend of the season, and they needed to win out against us in D.C., in order to, get that opportunity in the wild card. And it was a team on a mission. They looked really good. They looked like they were playing together as a team. And, that's kind of like the MO usually when you have a team that has to play every day like it matters. They need to win every single day. Going into the playoffs hot like that is usually a team that's going to, make a long run in that postseason. And they got hot at the right time, really.
You guys almost played spoiler there that last day of the year. It looked for what it was worth. Like you guys were going to pull that out, and they were going to have to battle their ass off to get into the playoffs. But they ended up winning that and making it into the playoffs. And now here they are. Now they take down the number 1 seed in all of the American League. What do you think was the key factor for them here? I thought the Rays matched up well with them in terms of, pitching. With pitching, they can match up against anybody, really. What do you think the key factor was in terms of them beating the number 1 seed in the American League?
Well, I agree with you there. I thought they matched up pretty well. I mean, obviously the Rays, with their pitching, what they've been able to do all season has been incredible. But they did have to play Boston quite a bit over the regular season. So those hitters have seen those pitchers over and over again, especially the way they utilize those guys, and Kevin Cash, how he uses them out of the bullpen. I mean, those guys are coming in, they're seeing their best relievers over and over and over again. It's not like they have starters going, 6, 7, 8 innings. And, as a hitter, you just start to feel more comfortable the more you see guys. And I think you notice that, over the course of that series where the Boston hitters started to feel much more comfortable in the box. And, they had a few guys that get real hot. Kyle Schwarber is one of my favorite guys to watch play baseball. I was, lucky enough to be his teammate for a year this year.
Right.
And, I think he made that whole lineup better once he got back healthy for them. And you could just see it throughout that series. I think some of their guys got hot at the right time, and they just started to feel comfortable and feed off each other. And the Rays just couldn't really get anything going. I mean, they had their moments, but you got to give it to Alex Cora there, and as far as how he managed the bullpen, and because there were some games where he needed to make some quick decisions and he wasn't afraid to, and some of their guys out of the pen stepped up.
Speaking of that lineup and certain guys getting hot at the right time, one guy that is seemingly just hot all the time, Rafael Devers, is just an absolute stud. But I'm really glad that we got you on for this conversation, because as a catcher, a guy that's behind the plate, I noticed in this series, Devers clearly is not 100%. He looks like he's up at the plate at about 50% right now. And I started noticing the Rays pitching him. He has a forearm issue. And I started noticing the Rays just busting him up and in with heaters. and heater after heater after heater up and in. As a catcher, is that something that you would have gone to? Like, you see a guy that's clearly injured, so were they just trying to exploit a weakness that they thought he had at the time?
Yeah, I think so. I noticed that even when we played him in the last series, he didn't look completely healthy, but obviously posting up. But I kind of joked with guys during our series against him. It was like, it only hurt him when he missed the ball. When he made contact, it didn't bother him at all. But we tried to do the same kind of thing as far as try to exploit the weakness, maybe take advantage of that a little bit. But he doesn't really have many holes, and he's that type of hitter that he can look terrible on a pitch or on a certain location and then be on it the next one. And, as a catcher behind the plate, you try to take advantage of that, but a hitter of that caliber, you always have to be mindful of when that guy's going to make an adjustment and expect him to make an adjustment. So you kind of have to prepare for that going into it and have some sort of feel and, make sure that you're trusting your eyes to where when you think he's about to make that adjustment in order to be able to, combat that and adjust prior to that. So, but he was able to make the adjustments he needed to in order to get to those pitches, and the Rays weren't.
Yeah, and his 3-run bomb in the final game that seemed like it touched the moon almost was a big reason they advance. They win the ALDS and head to the ALCS. So let's move on over to the other ALDS series. The Astros and the White Sox just finished up. The Astros win that series. One thing I thought was interesting in this series, a theme that I had seemed to realize over the years, is that pitching wins in the playoffs. But it seems like
always
this year, I don't know, is there like a shift? You look at these teams that won, the Red Sox, the Astros, when the White Sox have the best pitching staff in the world. The Braves advance over the Brewers, who have a great pitching staff. Am I losing my mind? Is it no longer pitching wins in the playoffs? What's happening here?
No, it still does. It still does, but it's just, if your pitching is hot at that time. I remember something Jim Leland would always talk about. And when they would always ask him about momentum, about teams gaining momentum going into the next game, and he goes, momentum is only as good as your next day starter. So, regardless of what that guy's, been doing over the course of the season or the track record of that guy going into those games, which is a reason why, you make the decision to pitch, that particular guy, or even to bring a guy in the bullpen. But if he's hot at that moment, then you ride him. I remember, playoffs a while back in Detroit, Jose Valverde was struggling in the closer's role, and Leland decided to bring in Phil Koch as our closer. He got hot, and he rode him throughout the playoffs into the World Series against the Giants. So, it just depends on when those guys get hot and how how the manager decides to deploy them. But pitching still is always going to win out. You need good pitching in order to win in the playoffs.
And that was the year, if I'm not mistaken, that Valverde was great in the regular season. Almost like
he didn't blow a save in the regular season.
Didn't blow a save in the regular season, and then gets to the playoffs, and like you said, you just ride the hot hand. You go with the guy that's hot and momentum. That makes sense. I feel better about continuing to say pitching wins in the playoffs, guys. Just trust me, it wins in the playoffs. So then, the Astros win those first two at home. You get to Game 3 in Chicago. Turns out the south side of Chicago in the playoffs is the best atmosphere ever. It was sick. They blow out the Astros in Game 3. They have another at home. Did you think after Game 3 that this whole series could have shifted and changed?
It certainly had the opportunity to do that, but I thought from the get-go the Astros were, aside from that Game 3, were in control, and you saw a team determined. And that's kind of like my take from watching that series was, there wasn't going to be any stopping Houston. I mean, Chicago had their Game 3. I think they were, obviously had a bit of extra adrenaline and excitement because they're back in their home ballpark, playoff game in Chicago on the south side, which is, playing there, a tremendous fan base. And, that can bring something out of it. But then I think once after that game, once they got into that Game 4, it allowed the Astros to kind of relax a little bit, and they got back into control. But I thought from the get-go, that the Astros, they just looked like a team determined. They were ready to go.
Yeah, and speaking of that game 3, there was a play in that game which, as a catcher yourself, I need to ask you about this. So I'm assuming you saw the play, but just a quick setup, ground ball from Yasmani Grandal to first base. First baseman Yuli Gurriel comes up, throws home. It hits Grandal, who's running in the grass. The catcher, who it goes past him, Maldonado, immediately stands up, points, and says he was in the way. It hit him, goes back, and it turns out the run counted. They said it was fine. They said it was fair game. Do you think they made the right call there?
That's a tough one because obviously going the opposite direction, if you have the catcher throwing towards first base to throw the runner out going to first, and if he's in the grass outside of the baseline, then the runner's out. And so I don't know if there's actually been a situation where I've actually seen the play the opposite direction where the ball coming from first base hits the runner. But, that's a tough one for me. I don't, when you look at it, I don't think they did, just because, from the rule, the opposite direction, that the runner's automatically out and then the runners go back. But, just for like watching that, it's hard to say that was the correct call. But there's always a few rules in baseball, as you know, that kind of get everybody riled up because, no one really understands how they came up with it.
Well, that's my opinion as well. And obviously the rule going the opposite way, which is what happened here, isn't really very cut and dry. But what we found out is that, they can kind of do whatever as long as they don't intentionally get in the way. Look, Alex, I played baseball for a long, long time, and from a guy that rolled over a lot of baseballs and had to run down to first base, I have never once run in the grass. You can't tell me that he didn't intentionally get in the way. And kudos to him for doing it. If you can get away with it, great. But I know, as a catcher yourself, if that happened when you were behind the plate and couldn't catch it, you'd be pretty pissed off.
Oh yeah, I would have been just like Maldonado there. It's cause for an ejection for sure, because you're going to be arguing with the umpire, and that's something that the umpire is going to be talking about, that it's a judgment call, and those are always tough to swallow as a player, especially when you're on the receiving end like that.
Yeah, so the Astros go on and advance, but this Astros team, Alex, is special. And you've played on some teams, and I look back at those Tigers teams that you were a part of that were special and just had some lineups that were so deep and had studs, but you end up getting into the 6-7 spot in the lineup and there's still studs there. This Astros team has a guy that's going to get MVP votes, and Kyle Tucker hitting in the 7 hole. What is this team like? As a catcher yourself, how do you pitch to a team like that? There's no holes in the lineup. That makes it impossible to get through, right?
Oh yeah, no, you're very, very careful. That's for sure. They're an extremely deep team, 1 through 9 in their lineup. They have good players, and the one thing about it, they have, their core group of guys have been together for a long time, so that's why you see kind of a calmness about them even through these playoffs. Obviously, because they've been through it before. But trying to navigate a lineup that deep is very difficult. Like you said, I've had my share of run-ins with lineups that are that potent, and you try to just basically put together a game plan as best you can prior to the game, and you just have to, as the catcher, try to get your pitcher in the best position possible to execute his pitches, and that is the only way you can. Is if you got a guy on the mound that is just on that day and is executing well, and you're bound to make mistakes here and there throughout the course of a game, even when you have a guy on the mound that's doing really well, and just hope that the stuff's good enough to where you might be able to get away with a couple here and there, and then get right back on track and execute the game plan. But it's definitely a chore to try to get through a lineup like that, and I'm glad I'm on the other side watching it on TV, because it's it's more fun to watch for sure than trying to figure out how to get those guys out.
So yeah, this lineup is clearly incredible, and so is this lineup that they're about to go up against. So you got the Astros, the Red Sox meeting up in the ALCS, two incredible offenses. How do you see this one shaping up, Alex? What do you got here in this series? How does this series play out?
Well, I think it goes the distance. You have, like you said, you have two offenses that are hot right now. You know, teams that are scoring runs, and pitching staffs that have pitched okay, maybe not all the way to their potential, but they've pitched okay, and both managers have done good jobs as far as managing their bullpen and getting the guys in that they need to get those high leverage outs. And I think you're just going to see more of that. I think you're going to see some games that are going to be high scoring, mixed in with a couple low scoring games there, obviously. But I think it goes the distance. And I think we're going to see a good 7-game series.
That'd be incredible. I'm here for that. All right, let's move on to the National League. Let's start with a series that's finished up. Braves, Brewers, the series is over. The Braves are advancing, and they're a team that you know pretty well. You played in that division this year for the first time with the Nationals, so you got to play against the Braves. Look, coming into this season, I had the Braves as my World Series prediction. I picked them to win it, and then Ronald Acuna goes down, who's one of the best players in all of baseball. And a lot of people kind of wrote them off after that. This team can't win it all without him and Soroka being a part of this. What is it about this team? How are they still so good without the best player in baseball? They lose one of the best players, an MVP favorite to start the year, and now we're about to watch them in the NLCS.
Yeah, well, I think first off, to answer that question as far as Acuna, I think Anthopoulos did an awesome job, obviously, at the deadline to acquire Duvall, Soler, and Peterson in order to make up for some of that production loss from Acuna. And those guys, all three of them have played a huge part in their success down the stretch of the second half and obviously in the playoffs. So that's one. I think, that's a big factor there. They've had some big pitching performances from Max Fried, and their bullpen, which was kind of like the question mark going in as far as trying to bridge that gap to Smith. They've gotten some guys, like we were talking about earlier, some guys are hot. Some guys are pitching well and getting big outs, and they threw really well against the Brewers. Overall, that was a pretty well-pitched game, obviously, with the Brewers starting rotation. But I think the biggest key for me on that team, though, is always going to be Freddie Freeman. And obviously his heroics, yesterday was incredible. And he's one of my favorite players to watch. I love the way he goes about, playing every single day. He posts up every single day. And, he's a fun guy to watch, great to talk to. And I mean, he had me out of my seat yesterday when I saw that live, the home run off a Hader. That I've never faced Hader, but I faced Chris Sale a few times, so I could only kind of imagine what it's like. And the fact that he has 2 homers off him blows my mind.
So you mentioned one. It's funny you mentioned that the Braves acquire 3 good baseball players to just try and make up for how good Ronald Acuna is. But one of those guys is Jock Peterson, who arguably was the MVP of this series he started one game. He hardly started in this series. Hits a huge 3-run home run in a 3-0 victory, hits another home run. He ends up 3 for his first 3 with 2 bombs. How difficult is it? And you've done this, how difficult is it to come off of the bench in a big game, late in the game, and produce like that? That is so difficult. How impressive has it been what he did in that series?
No, that's really impressive. And you're right to point that out, because it is very, very difficult, because you're not afforded 3 or 4 at-bats in the game. So there's no kind of feeling out the at-bat. You're not feeling out a pitcher. You're not trying, to kind of feel your way into a game. And you have one opportunity, basically. And, typically when you're the pinch hitter, you're going to have that one pitch. If you miss it, good luck. And, he made the most of his at-bats that he got prior to starting the last game. But you're right. It is extremely difficult. I don't think people realize how difficult it is to pinch hit, come off the bench like that, late in games, in big situations, and to be able to execute on what your game plan might be. And usually you're facing one of the better relievers on the opposing team. So, the odds are always going to be stacked against you in those situations. So what he did was pretty incredible. And like you said, a big reason why they're in the position they're in.
So before we move on to this other matchup, which is still going on, I got to ask you this. If you're Craig Counsell, or if you're you, because if you're Alex Avila, who I think is going to be a big league manager someday and going to be great at it. So let's say you're managing the Brewers. Do you start Corbin Burnes in Game 4? That one caught me a little by surprise. Would you have started him there?
I mean, not really knowing anything what was going on as far as behind the scenes there. I mean, yeah, he was the best pitcher in baseball. This season, I think, when you look at his numbers and what he was able to do. So when you're in that position where you're kind of backs against the wall, you want your guy, even if he doesn't start, your best guy's giving you that chance. But obviously we don't know the whole story.
Right.
And, you never know how, what kind of goes into the thought process and their decision-making process. And obviously, being on, short rest takes into account. So, but usually when your back's against the wall like that, you're going to pull out all the stops.
Right, and we saw that last night with Walker Buehler going out there for the Dodgers and throwing really well, which leads into this series. It's not even over yet as we talk. Game 5 coming up. How cool is it, this matchup? You have the two best teams in baseball. They're one of the best rivalries in all of baseball, all time in baseball. They're division rivals. They've never met in the playoffs, and now we get them for the first time in a Game 5 NL West matchup and to go to the NLCS. How awesome has this series been?
Yeah, no, the series has been great. It's lived up to the hype, and they've been playing really good baseball. Both teams, obviously, figuring out ways to get it done without their first basemen, and the fact that they're meeting in a Game 5 situation, you got no other games going on. It'll be fun to watch, and I think all of baseball is kind of excited for this matchup. I'm excited to watch Logan Webb pitch after the gem he threw, to see how he kind of comes up after throwing great the first time. So that should be fun, and I mean it should be a good game. Just like the last 4 games, and I'm looking forward to it tomorrow.
Me too. A guy that is a big reason that they're here is Max Scherzer, who pitched in that wild card game and then threw another. He's thrown twice. He's thrown great, but it made me realize. So you've caught Max many times, and in his quote prime, when he should have been in his prime, but it almost seems, Alex, like he's getting better and better and better as he gets older. How would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, he's definitely been at least for sure maintaining and definitely getting better. But I think a lot of that just has to do with the experience. I mean, he understands himself so well. He knows his mechanics so well. He's able to make adjustments really quick, and I think that's one thing that separates truly great pitchers from good pitchers and good pitchers from guys that are, struggling to stay in the big leagues, where they're able to make adjustments really quickly. Guys like him, that, they're not waiting 3 or 4 pitches, even in inning, to make the adjustment. And by that time, you've given up 3 or 4 runs. They're able to make the adjustment quick, but then also adjust to the game, and pitch to the scoreboard, where, guys nowadays have a hard time doing that, because a lot of it now is, you're throwing as hard as you can for as long as you can. So usually that doesn't last too long. So Max, to his credit, he's been able to figure out ways to pitch basically with what he has. And, he still has tremendous stuff, but he's just able to use his experience to his advantage against lineups. And he was a lot of fun to catch again this year for me. And he's been great to watch. And I've always enjoyed it, and he's one of the best competitors out there right now.
Yeah, you've been with him a lot in his career, and in Detroit, and this year in Washington. Now, one thing I know about Max is on days he starts, the energy, the fierceness is on another level. Alex, give me your best. Give me a great Max Scherzer story.
Oh man. I mean, I have a few, some that I really don't want to divulge publicly because I feel like we have that. But I mean, hmm. I mean, one that I've told before, and I don't know if you've heard, but like, I mean, we've had some funny interactions on the mound. And when I've called time and gone out there, although I didn't have to do that much this year because he was just kind of locked in. But there was one in particular in Detroit. We were in Kansas City, and he had two guys on with one out, and it was early in the game, like the second inning. Had already thrown a lot of pitches, but it was late in the year. We had already done our fantasy football draft, so I think the story goes that I've said a few times. It's been out there where I go out there. I didn't really have anything to say to him. I mean, there's not much you're going to say to him that's going to help him out. So I figured, well, let me just get his mind off baseball for a second, give him a breather. So I proposed a trade that I was thinking about, proposing to him in fantasy football. And so I said it to him real quick right when I got out to the mound. And it kind of took him by surprise. He was kind of looking down towards the dirt, shuffling with the ball. And he looks up and he kind of stares me right in the eye. Like, are you like with the, like an, are you serious? Like kind of look on his face. And I was like, yeah, you want to do it? Shake my hand right now. And then all of a sudden, like he smiled and loved every minute of it. And actually started thinking about it and was going through the situation. Then at that point, the umpire comes up and trying to hurry us up. And we're sitting there trying to make a fantasy football trade. And he's like, oh, I got to look at some of the numbers. I'll get back to you after the game. So I went back, back behind the plate and, not really understanding like, man, what did I really just do that? And he ended up getting out of the inning and he pitched well that game. And I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I figured it was a fun little time to, try something new.
Did he accept the trade after the game?
No, he declined it. I
I
tried to get him at a weak moment there in the middle of the game.
That's brilliant on your part, by the way. So I'm not going to put you on the spot for this series. I'm going to get a prediction from you in a minute. But in terms of this series, do you think whoever wins this Game 5, ends up advancing to the World Series?
I think so, yes. I mean, as much as I've enjoyed the Braves, and I like what their pitchers have been doing. I mean, San Francisco and LA, they've just been this whole year for both teams have been incredible. And I think both teams, whoever comes out of it, is just on a collision course for the World Series.
I totally agree with that. But so now that gets us to the World Series, Alex. We got a couple teams still. We still got the Giants, the Dodgers, the Braves, the Astros, the Red Sox. Of all the teams left, who do you like in the World Series? If you were to have to make a prediction right now, I'm great with predictions, by the way. I came out with my bracket and I absolutely murdered it. So I want to hear your prediction. Who do you like to win the World Series?
Oh man. I don't know if people are going to like this. I think it's going to be Houston. They're just, to me, they look like a team. They've been very businesslike. They look very confident in their abilities, not only offensively but defensively. They're a great team. They're getting really quality pitching, and I think Houston will probably be it at the end there.
All right. We'll hold you to that now. We're very serious about our predictions around here. We don't get them wrong very often. Alex, before I let you go, so you first off, you just retired. Congratulations on an incredible career. And you just finished up a season with the Washington Nationals. Now, you've played with some of the best hitters to ever do it. And one that comes to mind is Miguel Cabrera, who you were with in his prime and is, my opinion, a top 3 right-handed hitter of all time, top 5 hitter of all time, and you got to play with him, and now you get to play with Juan Soto. Talk a little bit about Juan Soto and just how good he is.
Well, Juan, he's probably the best hitter I've seen since Miguel. And Miguel I thought was the best hitter I've ever seen. Juan, is damn near close to that, if not better. I think Juan has a chance to be better, as long as he stays healthy. Just the way the ball comes off the bat. People always talk about that because, it's so easy to see. That's the one thing that you see, that separates guys like him, guys like Miguel, from everybody else in Major League Baseball. And, the way the ball comes off his bat is unlike anything else. It sounds different. But then you couple that with his incredible plate discipline. I heard something right at the end of the year where he didn't swing at a pitch above the strike zone the entire season. He didn't swing at a ball at the top of the strike zone that was out of the strike zone the entire season, which is that's insane to me. Yeah, just his ability to be able to control the strike zone, make contact, and also hit for power, drive in runs. He's about as complete a hitter as you would want on a team. A hitter that everyone looks for as far as scouts and teams. And he has the opportunity to be, one of the best hitters ever, I think. Just from watching him play, I was excited to play with him this year. He didn't disappoint at all. He's an extremely hard worker. He's a student of the game. I see many, many great years from him. As long as he stays healthy and keeps himself into shape, which he's a tremendous athlete in that regard. So it should be fun to watch him for the rest of his career. That's
incredible. You said he's a student of the game. One thing that I remember from this year, his first half of the season, the power numbers weren't there per se, and he said, and I don't know if he meant this. He said he was going to participate in the home run derby just so he could figure out his swing. And then he goes on and has the best second half that we have maybe ever seen. It was absolutely incredible. Was that serious? Did he do the home run derby just for that reason?
Yeah, no, that's something that, as a team, a few of us in the cage and stuff had talked about with him. I know Scherzer was something that had mentioned that to him as well. Because he was in the first half, even though he was doing good, was just having a hard time getting the ball in the air. I guess just, having to prepare for the home run derby, a couple of weeks before, once he knew he was going into it, he started, preparing for it, taking, more of batting practice and trying to hit home runs and trying to, tweak his swing a little bit. And going into that home run derby, you could tell he started to feel real comfortable, obviously, with being able to get the ball in the air. And you're right. He just kind of took it into the second half and, just went off and was absolutely incredible. And was kind of like that guy that everyone was saying, how he was the previous year and the year before that when he came. And it was fun to watch. And usually that's not always the case. Guys don't go into the home run derby excited that it's going to help their swing. Usually you hear guys saying, I don't want to do the home run derby because it might hurt my swing. But, that's funny that he was the opposite. And, I feel like only a guy like Juan, who has that kind of trajectory, towards a Hall of Fame player can think that way and be successful like that, because that was pretty fun.
It was fun. And before I let you go, Alex, speaking of fun, and I know you said that you followed along with the show and you've seen some of it, so my favorite player is Shohei Ohtani. So I got to ask you about Shohei Ohtani and the year that he just had, that we just witnessed. Yeah. I can't explain it. I've asked a lot of people about him. I want to hear what you think and thought of the season that we just watched from Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, I was kind of upset a little bit and bummed out that I didn't get to play against him this year and actually see him up close in person. But obviously seeing the highlights and watching games like everyone else and what he did was incredible. Nobody's seen that since Babe Ruth. And I can't remember who it was who said it kind of in the middle of the year, but I remember it just kind of stuck in my head about Shohei was that, he was doing what, all of us did in Little League. You'd pitch and hit and you did really well. Typically most big leaguers, did both really well in Little League. and he's doing it in the big leagues at the highest level against the best competition in the world. I mean, for that stuck with me when I heard that in the middle of the year. I don't know who said it, but they were spot on with that because, it's just, there's no words to kind of explain what he's been able to do. And I'm sure there's going to be some guys and some teams that try to replicate it, and they'll probably fail miserably because, really, he's probably the only guy that I've ever seen that has the athletic ability to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like you were onto something down the stretch of your career, being behind the plate and then going out and playing middle infield. I mean, I feel like we were getting close to you being a Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, you saw how that went for me. I tried to play second base one day and I strained both calves.
That was fun. I saw on Twitter you were coming into the game, and I could not have put on the game faster when I knew you were going out to play second base. Oh, God. Alex, thank you so much for joining me, man. It's been awesome. I've watched your career for a long time and watched you with my brother's team and watched your career along the way. And congratulations on a great career. Thank you so much for joining me. Enjoy the rest of the playoffs and enjoy whatever comes next, whether it be you back on TV or managing someday. But congratulations on everything, man.
Thanks, Ben. I really appreciate it. Keep it up, man. You're doing awesome.
I appreciate that, man. See ya. All right, and thanks to Alex Avila for joining me. Somebody just out of the game, being able to talk to him and pick his brain about the playoffs was awesome. But now, let's bring in our gambling specialist, Sammy P, and win you all some money throughout the rest of October. Sammy P, as everyone else likes to call him, Sammy Panayotovich, as I like to call him, because that's his actual name that just nobody else knows how to pronounce, but I do. Sammy, welcome back in, my friend. Thank you for joining me.
Happy to be here. I wore the purple for Taco Bell, but I wore the suit, Ben, for the White Sox funeral I attended about 3 hours ago. I still can't believe that Anderson, Moncada, Robert Abreu, and Eloy Jimenez got no extra base hits in the entire ALDS. If you would have told me that was going to happen, I wouldn't have bet the Boston or the Chicago White Sox for that matter. What a disaster they were at the plate.
It really was. But Sammy, again, thanks for joining me. We got you back. We're going to talk some ALCS. We're going to talk some World Series. We're going to let you tell the people where they should be putting their money in these upcoming weeks when it comes to the rest of the baseball playoffs. So we've had you on a couple times. I'm excited to have you back. And let's start with the remaining matchup we have in the division series. We have the Giants and we have the Dodgers. The series is shifting back to San Francisco for a Game 5 winner-take-all matchup to go to the NLCS. And, the odds here are -110 on both sides. So, as even as it gets. So what do you like here in this Game 5 matchup?
I love the Giants bullpen. I love. And when you look at the starters, Webb and Arias, I think this is a game where both guys probably go 5 innings, maybe 5 1/3, 5 2/3. And then it goes to the pen. And who's been better regular season, postseason than the San Francisco Giants? I mean, they just throw guys at you, they get guys out. And I think it's very telling, Ben, because we know how people bet the Dodgers. They bet them until, the cows come home. The fact that this is -110 tells me everything I need to know here. The Dodgers probably true line is like -130, -135 or so, but there's a lot of respect in Las Vegas. We know that the books don't need the Giants to win and go far, but the fact that they're pricing this as a coin flip against the very popular LA Dodgers club, I love the Giants. I was all in the Giants before the series, and I'm not going to change my mind now.
You were, and this is another situation, it sounds like, where, if this wasn't the Dodgers involved, the odds would probably be 130, but because it is the Dodgers and people like to bet on them, it's -110 on both sides. Before we move on from this game, Sammy, do you like anything? You got any props you're going to bet on this game?
Yeah, I was flipping through the phone here. I got the Fox Bet app up, and I found a couple that I really like. I'm only going to give you one, though. Chris Bryant to hit a home run and the Giants to win is +550. So 100 makes me 550. I don't know how you feel about Bryant, but I've seen him do this in big games in Chicago for years. When the stakes are high, this guy thumps the ball. I don't know that he's going to get one over the wall, but given the math, you're going to give me 550 on Bryant to homer and the Giants to win. I'll throw a little bit of coin down. Why not?
Here's what I know. I know that Chris Bryant in the regular season is always very streaky. I know when it comes playoff time, he seems to rake. And I also know that you are a pro's pro by only giving us one of the many props that I know you have. Because that's an absolute pro right there. Sammy, let's move on to the American League side of things, the ALCS. We got the Houston Astros and we got the Boston Red Sox. The Houston Astros are minus 162 to win this series. They got home field advantage as well. The Red Sox are plus 135. What are you looking at in this series?
The lineup for the Red Sox getting plus 135 is very intriguing to me. And I thought they were a little undervalued in that series against Tampa. Remember, Tampa opened minus 200 against Boston. So this is a big correction in the market. Vegas opened this minus 150 on the Astros. So that's a 50-cent drop from the Rays to the Astros. That's pretty telling, right? I think the Astros, and give our guy Jacob Sarabia, who hasn't left me alone on Twitter since game 1 or game 2 of the ALDS, give him a little hat tip. Congrats, you got past the White Sox. But this is a tougher test because the Red Sox 2 through 6, 2 through 7 in that lineup, they are unconscious right now, man. I know it's a small sample size, but through the postseason so far, Red Sox have the highest average, most hits, highest slugging, and most home runs. Good luck with that lineup. And when I saw Lance McCullers leave last game with forearm tightness, it made me a little nervous because we know Houston doesn't have the horses in the rotation. This will be a slugfest of a series, and I think it could go either way. If that's the case, if I make it a coin flip, of course, I'm going to take plus 135 before I lay 162. That's no problem.
So are you looking at, is there a series handicap you would look at here?
Yeah, so this is essentially, Ben, it's a spread on the series. They give you or you take a game and a half. So essentially here, if the Red Sox make it to game 6 or game 7, you're good, right? I mean, like that's the math here. So if it goes to game 7, I get the 1.5. Red Sox lose the series 4-3. 1.5 plus 3 is 4.5. So this has to go the distance here. But as I said, I don't like either rotation. I don't really like either bullpen. This has all the makings of a classic 7-game series. The Red Sox don't have to win the series. As long as it goes the distance, I can't lose. There's a little bit of juice here, minus 154, but I think the Red Sox have every chance to win it. And if in this case, if they lose in game 7, I will win. Give me plus 1.5 games with the Boston Red Sox.
So you get them here, even if the Astros can still win the series here. If it goes 7 games, though, you win your bet. And any situation, any scenario where the Red Sox win the series, you win this bet as well. So that's what Red Sox plus 1.5 means, correct? As long as they're within a game, you know, if the series ends 4-3 Astros, if the series ends 3-2, or, you know, whatever, 4-3 Red Sox, you win that bet no matter what.
Yeah, Red Sox win the series, I'm cool. Red Sox lose 4-3, I'm cool. As long as it's not 4-2, 4-1, 4-0 Astros, Red Sox plus 1.5 is a winner.
I'm going to be honest with you, Sammy. I don't know, man. I really feel this Astros team, they're road warriors, man. They have embraced the whole villain role. If there's anybody that's not going to be intimidated going into Fenway Park on the road in front of that hostile crowd, it's these guys. Not only will they not be intimidated, I think they embrace it. I'm really, really excited to see this series because, you know, I think we both kind of went in a direction of pitching is going to win in the playoffs. We like this team because of pitching. That's why we both like the White Sox. And then we now have this series, which is all offensive oriented. And I'm super excited to watch it. So we got your bet there. We like what you like, or we got what you like in Red Sox plus 1.5 series handicap. So let's move on to some World Series odds. What do you like in terms of some best bets we can find in the World Series?
Well, this is predicated on this team taking care of business in a do or die spot. San Francisco Giants at the number plus 350. So I told you before this whole thing started, I thought it'd be the White Sox and the Giants. One of my teams, RIP, it's all over, but I will stick with the Giants here. If they win this 7th game, or the 5th game rather, I'm so used to the 7-game series, right? If they win this 5th game against the Dodgers, this price gets cut down to maybe 225 or 2-1. You might see a very similar price with the Giants and the Astros, but I'm going to get ahead of the curve here. I want the Giants to win game 5 and to win the World Series. You get ahead of the move, you get more money in your pocket. Plus 350. I think they slay the Giants. And by the Giants, I mean the Dodgers. I think the Giants are going to put away the Dodgers, move on to the NLCS, and that'll be a hell of a series. What if we get, Ben, what if we get Red Sox and Astros And Giants and Braves, holy offense. That's going to be an awesome Final Four.
So what you're saying is if you like the Giants, get ahead of this final game, because if you like them in the World Series, that means they have to win this next game. And you might as well bet it before their odds plummet after this game 5, correct? So bet it before this game even starts.
Yeah, I mean, and that goes to the same people that like the Dodgers. Look, I like the Giants. If you like the Dodgers, my advice would be to bet one of those two teams right now. Don't wait until game 5 is over and then look up and go, oh, I like the Dodgers, or oh, I like the Giants, because you're not going to get the best price. If you feel it in your gut that one of these teams is going to move on and win the World Series, bet it before that 5th game, because the price will only go down on the winner.
Sammy, you're a legend, my friend. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me. I love having you on, man. Best of luck in all your future bets. And on top of that, you're the best dressed man in all of the gambling world, and that's why I most love having you on. So, my friend, thank you so much for joining me. I'll have you back on soon.
Chris Bryant, buddy. Going Yabo. You pay attention.
All right, buddy. See it. Thanks. All right, I wanted to thank again Alex Avila for joining me, Sammy P for joining me as well. 2 great guests in the middle of this playoff, in the middle of October. 2 great guys to join me. So now what I want to do is get into some top 5s. I love doing these. We got a couple of them, a few of them for you today. Top 5 playoff performances, top 5 playoff atmospheres, and top 5 active base stealers. So let's get into that, and let's start with top 5 postseason performers. I'm going to bring producer Conrad out here as usual to help me through these. Conrad, let's go.
All right, number 5, we have Lance McCullers.
Yeah, look, Lance McCullers in number 5. What he's done this postseason has been nothing short of great. Start number 1 in Houston, game 1 of the ALDS. He was dominant. And then what they did after a rainout, by the way, is he wasn't even supposed to start in game 4. But they end up going through the rainout. They end up getting pushed back a day. And then Lance McCullers comes out to start. Dusty Baker goes for the jugular. You know what? The White Sox are sticking with their starter. We're going to go with our guy. We're going to go with Lance McCullers. And what he did was this. He brought the energy. He brought it. He threw great. Look, this guy now in the postseason, 1-0 with an ERA right around 1. But what he did the other day when he won that series for the Astros is why he's on this list. He goes back out and he dominated for the Astros on the road in a hostile environment in Chicago, and he threw fantastic. Twice already in October. That's why he's here. That's why he's number 5 on this list.
All right, coming up at number 4, Mr. Jocktober himself, Jock Peterson.
That's right, Jocktober, baby. It's Jocktober. Look, this guy hasn't even started but 1 time in the playoffs. Jock Peterson has started 1 game, and that's actually the game that he didn't get a single hit. But what he's done in this postseason, before that, 3 at-bats, off the bench, pinch hitting. He's on this list for what he did pinch hitting. 3 for 3, 2 bombs, first game of the NLDS against the Brewers, pinch hits late in the game, hits a bomb. They end up losing 2-1. All of their offense. Right here. Jocktober with the pearls, the pearl necklace. All their offense. They end up losing. They win game 2. He pinch hits that game. He gets a hit. And then they go home. A 1-1 series. Jock Peterson comes up in that game. Hits a 3-run bomb late in the game. Rocking the pearl necklace again. 3-run bomb. They win 3-0. That's all the offense. That's all you need. They win the game 3-0. So in 2 of the games in this series that the Braves won, he was every single bit of their offense. That's why he's on this list, and that's why he's on here after only starting 1 of the 4 games that the Braves and the Brewers played. What a series for him.
All right, number 3, we have Logan Webb.
Logan Webb. First thing I need to say about him being number 3 is he's expected to start game 5 of the NLDS against the Dodgers, and he very well could end up right here. After his game 1 performance, 7 2/3, 10 strikeouts, only a couple of hits, he set the tone for this series for the Giants. He absolutely set the tone. A brilliant outing, a win for the Giants. They end up shutting the door behind them. But probably to this point, I would say this has been the best outing of the postseason among starting pitchers. He was brilliant in that game. So he's at number 3 right now with the potential to easily finish right here. But we'll see what he does in Game 5 for the Dodgers. But what a awesome start for him, Conrad. That was unbelievable in Game 1.
Absolutely was. At number 2, we have friend of the pod, Kyle Tucker.
Kyle Tucker, friend of the pod. The podcast bump is real, by the way, Conrad. It is a real deal, and it's continuing in the playoffs. And it's continuing with guys like Kyle Tucker. I mean, he's been great. He leads all of baseball in the postseason with RBIs. He's got a couple of home runs in big spots in the game, all while hitting in the 7 spot in this lineup. Look, I could have picked a couple of Astros, to be honest. There's a few of them playing well, including, look, this guy, I got his shirt on, Yordan Alvarez. He's hitting great, but I feel like he has been the key for this team, and that's why he's here. He's hitting well. He's got a couple of bombs, but he's driving in more runs than anybody else in this postseason. And more importantly, he's making this great lineup incredibly, incredibly deep. I look at this Houston Astros team, and you don't even think of him as one of the top 4 guys. And he's producing better than anybody in the playoffs. That's what makes this team special. This Houston Astros team is special for all the guys you can think of: Altuve, Correa, Bregman, Gurriel, Yordan. But this guy right here, the guy that's leading all of postseason baseball in runs batted in, he's what makes this team special, because you can put him in the 7 hole and he's going to do great. And he's doing great this October as the Astros move on to take on the Red Sox in the ALCS. And that's why he's number 2.
All right, coming in at number 1, the one and only Kike Hernandez.
That's right. There's nobody else. This guy has been incredible. 435 on the postseason so far, 6 RBIs, 1 behind the leader, which we just talked about, in Kyle Tucker. But, even more important than that is I feel like he changed the course of this Red Sox-Rays series. He is a large part of this reason that the Red Sox are even advancing. In that Game 2, the game that changed this series, the statement game for the Red Sox, that's the reason that they got to go back to Fenway with a split and end up winning the series there, is because in that game, he got 5 hits and 4 extra base hits, a bomb and 3 doubles, all in that statement game. And then he's that guy that when he comes up against the Rays to win the series, who do you want at the plate? Who happened to come up? This guy. In the last inning, to walk off the game, Kike Hernandez comes up to the plate and he gets the job done. What a masterful series for Kike Hernandez and for all of these guys so far. So this is the top 5 performers so far this postseason: Lance McCullers, Jock Peterson, Logan Webb, Kyle Tucker, Kike Hernandez. Now, let's move on, Conrad, to top 5 playoff atmospheres. And I'm excited about this one because there's going to be one that really surprises some people. So let's get into these.
All right, coming in at number 5, the Chicago Cubs in Wrigley Field.
Yeah, look, this one I have never actually gotten to experience. And this is one of my most embarrassing baseball takes. Not even a take. It's just one of my most embarrassing baseball things, that I've never been to Wrigley Field. But what I did do is watch that 2016 World Series. And wow, it was incredible. I wish I was there. The place was going nuts. Wrigley Field, Wrigleyville, in the middle of the playoffs in October. They win it. This place looked sick. And that's why Wrigley Field and the Chicago Cubs are absolutely on this list of top 5 playoff atmospheres.
Yep, coming in number 4, we have the New York Yankees at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, so I've gotten to experience a few playoff games at Yankee Stadium. What I will say here is that old Yankee Stadium was better than new Yankee Stadium. But still, come October time, it's tough to beat this place. Still, The place is incredible. You got everybody on their feet. You got the New Yorkers locked and loaded, ready to scream for their team, and it is loud there. It is loud. But I've gotten to experience playoff baseball in New Yankee and Old Yankee. Obviously, New Yankees is still on this list, but Old Yankee might even be higher. It was incredible. But New Yankee Stadium in October, it's tough to beat. So they're number 4 on this list.
All right, here comes the curveball. At number 3, Oakland Athletics.
The Oakland Coliseum, without a doubt in my mind, is one of the best playoff atmospheres in all of baseball. I've gotten to see a few playoff games here, and it changes in the playoffs. I'm telling you, the second the calendar turns October, if the Oakland Athletics are in the playoffs, this place turns into a party. It is the loudest venue I think I've been to. The stadium, not great. The fans during the regular season, they don't always pack the stadium. But in October, it gets loud. You know what, the other day, what even got me to thinking of top playoff atmospheres was watching the playoffs the other day. And it got me to thinking. And so I texted my brother the list of, I sent him like 4 teams. I was like, honestly, man, I think these are like some of the best atmospheres. And I sent him Oakland and some of the other ones, but Oakland was on that list. And you know what he said? He said, honestly, Oakland is number 1 for me, hands down. That's pretty special. So I felt justified in having them on my personal list. Because being in that crowd, oh man, I couldn't even hear myself think. So without a doubt, I know it's a curveball, but very justified. Oakland Coliseum in October, one of the best playoff atmospheres in the world.
Yep, coming in number 2, the Houston Astros, Minute Maid Park.
Yeah, Minute Maid Park. I've experienced a lot of playoff games here. Oh man, roof open or closed, it is special. It's special. But when that roof is closed, this place is unbelievable. I've experienced walk-offs here to send them to the World Series. I've experienced many games with walk-off home runs and go-ahead home runs and the away team taking the lead. Roller coaster games. Game 5 in the 2017 World Series. Back and forth and back and forth. But man, when that roof is closed and they hit a bomb and that train that you see up here goes rolling across the tracks and the fireworks start going off and the towels start rolling, this place is special. And if you haven't experienced, because you've gotten to see it a lot on TV over the last few years, because as I've said, 5 years in a row now, the Houston Astros have been in the ALCS. We get to see it on TV, but I'm telling you, in person, the Houston Astros Stadium, Minute Maid Park, man, it is a special atmosphere.
Coming in number 1, Boston Red Sox, Fenway Park.
Fenway Park. I mean, historic. Those fans are incredible. To be honest with you, when I think playoff baseball, I think Fenway. It's special. And it's special for, a lot of places in playoff baseball, it takes the team doing something to get the crowd into it. But that's not the case. With a lot of these, that's not the case, but especially Fenway. From before the first pitch, they're all yelling and screaming and on their feet. It is a crazy, hectic, loud playoff environment. And then once you start getting into the 7th inning, when Take Me Out to the Ball Game comes on, and then that next half inning when you get Sweet Caroline, whoo, it's incredible. Absolutely incredible. I love this list. I can't wait to get to Wrigley during a playoff game, but Wrigley Field, Yankee Stadium, Oakland Coliseum, Minute Maid Park, Fenway Park, my top 5 playoff atmospheres. Let's go on to the next one. Top 5 active base stealers. Conrad, let's start with number 5 there.
Number 5, you might know this guy, Shohei Ohtani.
Shohei Ohtani. I love this one. I love it. Very underrated part of his game, by the way. Ended up with 20 plus stolen bases this year, I believe 26 stolen bases. And he wasn't running a ton. He wasn't running as much as he could have been, because we all know what he does. He hits, he pitches, he does everything. But he started running more later and later in the year. I think he could have 30 plus. He's so fast. He's one of the best base stealers in the league right now. And he's going to be the American League MVP. So it's incredible also how fast he is. So he's certainly on this list.
Yep, coming number 4, we have Trey Turner.
traded mid-year, an all-star, a stud. I think he's probably the fastest player in baseball right now. Trey Turner. By the way, I love this picture because this was of the coolest slide
Ever.
I will never be that cool. Then this picture is from that, but he steals so many bags. He's so fast. I watched him the other night in Game 4 in the NLDS, and he just floats. He floats. He steals so many bags. So he's on this list at number 4.
Coming in number 3, Whit Merrifield.
Whit Merrifield is a very underrated player in this game. He steals. He's in the top 3 every year, it seems. And I think he's underrated because he plays for the Kansas City Royals, and they haven't been a very good team for a little while. But he is certainly very, very underrated. He gets so many hits. He's at the top of the league in hits every year, but he steals so many bags. This guy is so dynamic, a very underrated player in this league. Whit Merrifield is on this list for sure.
Number 2, Starling Marte.
I love Starling Marte's game. You know, he started the year in the National League and ended the year in the American League. And he ended up with more stolen bases. I think he might have led both leagues in stolen bases. This guy just steals more bags than anybody combined almost. It's truly incredible. Starling Marte is incredible. He is an on-base machine. When speaking of underrated players like Whit Merrifield, when you get to Starling Marte, and it's because the teams he's played on, the Marlins and then the A's, a little not big market teams, one of the best players in baseball, and certainly one of the best stealers, stolen base guys in this league. Absolutely.
Coming in number 1, Billy Hamilton.
Billy Hamilton, without a doubt, number 1 on this list. Currently, you know, there's guys in the league, he doesn't even play that much, but he's still fast, and he's one of the top base stealers of all time. Let's not forget just how good he was. A single, you hear the term a single turns into a double with this guy. With Billy Hamilton, in his prime, a stolen base turned into a triple. Like that, sometimes in 2 pitches. He's one of the top 5 stolen base leaders of all time, and he's still playing. He's still getting it done. This guy is electric. And he rounds out the top 5 active base leaders. Shohei Ohtani at 5, Trey Turner, Whit Merrifield, Starling Marte, and one of the best to ever do it, Billy Hamilton, rounding out that list. So that does it for the top 5s. All right, and now let's get into our extra innings segment. And I got 2 extra innings for you this week as we're over here next to our beautiful Taco Bell locker, our new presenting sponsor. Look, they even got a bag down here. It's right next to my locker. I hope it's full of cheesy gordita crunches. That's my thing. But our new presenting sponsor with a beautiful, beautiful locker. But let's head on over. First extra innings. I made it, guys. I was on freezing cold takes this week with my bracket. My playoff bracket is right here in all its glory, and it's not great. So, look, here's my take on this. I think it's kind of impressive when you think about it that I didn't get a single one, okay? It's actually harder than it is, even if it's harder to get them all wrong than it is to get like 75% right. Like if I were to take a test, you got to know all the wrong answers to get everyone wrong. So I'm on freezing cold takes this week, and it's the number 1 tweet on there. And yeah, look, I went with a theme. I went with pitching wins in the playoffs, and hitting clearly has dominated, but Alex agrees with me. Pitching wins in the playoffs. That's what I went with. That's what I stuck with, and it ended with this. But yeah, I thought it was hilarious. Freezing cold takes this week. And this is a freezing cold take. But like I said, honestly, pretty impressive when you think about it to fill out an entire bracket and not get one. Pretty impressive, I think. So that was cool. But heading on, let's do the second extra innings this week. And it was something pretty cool for me. Actually really cool. And we did a little special episode that came out yesterday with 2 all-time greats. Alex Rodriguez, David Big Papi Ortiz. Sat down with them and for about 12 minutes, and it was its own special episode, and it was actually really, really cool for me. It's probably the coolest thing that I've been able to do here at Fox, one of the coolest things for sure. These guys I grew up watching, and they're two of the best to ever do it. And to be able to sit down with them and pick their brain and to talk to them about some of their favorite playoff memories and some of their favorite things that they've gone through and some players that remind them of them. It was one of the coolest things that I've gotten to do. And if you haven't yet, I hope you check out that interview. It's right here. It's a special edition episode of Flippin Bats right before this one. So I hope you check that out. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of Flippin Bats. Make sure on Friday night, everyone, Game 1 of the ALCS against the Houston Astros, the Boston Red Sox, begins at 7:30 Eastern Time on Fox. You will not want to miss that one. That does it for this week's episode. Make sure you're subscribing on Apple, Spotify, wherever it may be. Make sure you're following along on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube at Flippin Bats Pod. We have every social media you can think of. You can even be a part of the show sometimes, but make sure you check that out. Make sure you're subscribing. Thanks again to our presenting sponsor, Taco Bell, and I will see you next time on Flippin Bats.
It's a blowout, 8th inning, 10-3. Bases are loaded for Verlander, who waits out a 3-0 pitch. He swings, and it's a high fly ball, deep center field. It is gone! Home run! And a huge bat flip to celebrate.